the Director of Professional Academic Programs here at Illinois Tech College of Computing. We want to thank you for joining us for the Cracking the Tech interview. We are excited to have you among us as we talk with Meta, Intuit, Slalom, and Baxter. And we see that we have people attending throughout Chicago, throughout Illinois, and throughout various states as well. So I just want to acknowledge and give a special thanks to everyone from Illinois Tech, Rust, Purdue, City Colleges, Oakton College, the YMCA, CPS, Moraine Valley, Glenbar East, Heartland, Harper, Knox, Triton, the College of Lake County, American Military University, Western Illinois, Chicago State, Old Dominion, the University of Rochester, Delaware, and Kansas, Discovery Partners, Intuit, Slalom, KIG, Meta, and Sargent and Lundy. If I have overlooked anyone present, then charge it to my head and not my heart. I also want to acknowledge that many of you all submitted wonderful questions beforehand. We will try through our wonderful moderator to get to most of those, but if we don't, feel free to contact myself. I think my information is somewhere, and reach out to the College of Computing or Career Services at Illinois Tech, and we will direct you further and try to assist you as much as we can. At this time, I would like to introduce our wonderful moderator, T. Nguyen. He is Illinois Tech's amazing Associate Vice President of Career Services. He has years of experience with career services, resident life, and just assisting students along their journey. He also, among the 22 years of related experience in STEM, he also serves as a core member of the National Association of Colleges and University Employers, working to provide recommendations to strengthen students' resources as they move forward in their career journeys. And without further ado, T.
Thank you, Erica. I'm so delighted to see everyone here today. This is a wonderful group. We don't have a lot of time, and so we are going to dive in. What I'm going to do is start with really specific introductions of our panelists, and then we're going to hear a little bit more about their experiences, and I've got a few leading questions, and then the goal is to open it up to the group. And I think this is a really wonderful opportunity to learn from each other. So Erica briefly introduced the companies, and as you can see, it's a very powerful list of companies. Our first panelist is Junaid Ali, who is a DevOps practitioner with Slalom Consulting. And so Junaid is a technology strategist working in end user computing, also has worked as a systems engineer focused on large scale traditional desktop and web app deployments in higher ed, amongst many, many other things. Next panelist is Nikita Sharon-Mazel, communication strategist and program manager for Meta, as you know, the parent company for Facebook. Nikita has more than 10 years of experience in the communications area, many of which include really utilizing data, change management techniques, and creative storytelling, which I love to hear, to help build and sustain productive and enjoyable work environments for employees and leaders. Next, we have Yessi Sasanto, Senior Manager and Data Scientist at Baxter International. Yessi has 10 years of experience in data and analytics within the finance, airlines, and healthcare industries, and a really strong background in analytics, working in that space, building data frameworks to obtain insights using advanced analytical techniques. Last but not least, we have Jonathan Mizell, Senior Manager at Intuit. Jonathan has 15 years of experience in leadership, market, and statistical analysis, forecasting, sports market investment, pricing strategy, supply chain, business intelligence, amongst others, and has spent the last 10 years in data and business operations analytics, diving into exploratory data analysis and understanding and researching data sets and predictive modeling. So that is our panelists and where they're coming from. Isn't that an impressive group? I think we're really honored there. So what we're going to do here is I want to allow each of the panelists to really tell us a little bit more about their background, particularly their journey into tech. So Junaid, if we could start with you, the mic is all yours.
Hey everyone, this is Junaid, as Ty introduced me earlier. Really excited to be here, part of this distinguished panel and within this community. Illinois Tech is a home for me, so happy to be back in the space. A little bit about myself. My tech journey began early on as a child. I was intrigued with computers, had my first exposure maybe around fourth, fifth grade, and then that interest led to continuing studies in undergraduate level in India, and I finally moved to the States in 2004 at Illinois Tech to pursue my master's degree in computer science. And that is a very special moment in time in my life, wherein I got exposed to great academics, wherein I learned a lot about the upcoming technologies. At that time, it was a lot of information retrieval, data mining type of work that was popular. So learned a lot within those areas within the School of Computing in my master's program, but my real technical hands-on journey began within our very friendly Office of Technology Services, where I was hired as a student worker, and I got exposed to computing 101 essentially. And I ran into my mentor, Jamal Musa, who's a system engineer there, who really kind of shaped my career, got me introduced, got me excited about technology, and gave me the space to kind of build and grow in that space. I learned a lot about the hardware stack, all the way up to operating systems, and then furthermore into applications and software development. Spending good time at IIT, solving a lot of complex challenges, kind of enabled me to kind of look at the next wave of technology, which was cloud-enabled technology, and I kind of pivoted and moved into the cloud space, taking my learnings in software development and automation, and trying to get into the DevOps automation space, helping teams build software faster, better, and deliver it to their end users at the fastest rate possible to generate the most value for customers. So that is the area where I currently work in at Slalom. It's a global technology and management consulting firm solving problems for our clients across different industries. I know there were some questions around consulting, so would love to touch on that at some point, but I'm going to keep my initial introduction short so we can get to the questions.
Great. Thank you, and welcome back virtually as an alum, Junaid. So, Nikita, tell us more about your background and your journey into tech.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi again. My name is Nikita. It's kind of interesting because I have a communication background. A lot of people are like, what are you doing in tech? Well, it really started, I got a degree in mass communications with a focus in public relations. Like many who graduated around the time that I graduated, there weren't many jobs in PR. And so I did a couple of odd end jobs working for a nonprofit or a for-profit school rather, and then moving into the airline industry where I started off surprisingly enough as a flight attendant, and then moved to our social media department within that team, which then led me to our internal communications team. While at United Airlines, I learned a lot about the operations of communications, really supporting frontline employees as well as the background technology of how to make things run. I soon got a offer with Meta, where I'm currently working. I have had 2 roles in that company at this time. Right now, I am working as a project manager supporting our internal communication space. And while this is not a traditional tech-based job, there is still a lot of technology or data that we utilize when it comes to really communicating on behalf of our employees and just providing messaging. And so that's just my quick introduction.
Great, thank you, Nikita. That is a wonderful story. That is so great to hear. I was also a PR major, just so we have that in common. Yassi, who's representing Baxter.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yesi, and as Ty introduced me earlier, and very nice to meet everyone in here, and thank you for the opportunity. Very excited for this event. So a little bit about my background and my journey, how I get into the tech is I actually started as an accounting major a while back. I was so sure that I was going to be an accountant, got the degree, did the job in accounting for 2 years, and I hated it. So I changed into another major. That's kind of at that moment because I already get a lot of my genetics kind of classes there. So general classes. So I took actually a turn into the statistic to learn a little bit more. So I got my degree in the applied mathematics at Paul University a while back, and kind of get my first job into the analyst, kind of in the logistic company, and kind of fall in love from there, playing around with the data and also getting more and more into modelings, data engineerings, basically working with a lot of data. And I worked for a various industry after that. Finance is one of them, and also actually I work for United Airlines too. So yeah, a little bit. I was in charge for in the data and analytics teams for Wi-Fi performance, and also solicitations program there that is coming up. So when you guys have any things that is overbooked, so those are one of the program that also we are handling right there. So right now I'm working for Baxter. I've been there for about a year right now. So my work is, I think it's very exciting there. So it's not only focusing on the data science pieces, but also a little bit data governance, management, and data engineering. So those are part of the interest that I'm interested and also passionate about that, and continue being challenged to actually learn in the industry, which is what I like. So that's about me.
Thank you, Yessi. And I can see here we definitely have a transportation theme happening here as well with our backgrounds. Jonathan, I'll turn it over to you for your introduction.
Sure. Thanks, T. Just really happy and excited to be on this panel. Should I just start with GoGo Air being a previous employer so we can keep it completely in the Chicago transportation space? So I'm originally from Chicago. I live in the Bay Area now. I did not graduate from college. I was a student for a while at Columbia College Chicago that might you all may be familiar with. I was a DJ in high school, and I went to Columbia College with the thought of being an audio engineer and working on bigger equipment. So my fascination, I think, with math, statistics, how things work, started at a very young age. So it was just being very curious, probably similar to Junaid, kind of mentioned that as well, being kind of into computers. I was always dissecting things and kind of taking things apart electronically, speaking anyway. I went to Columbia College and was a product manager for years. Kind of working in marketing, somewhere between marketing and engineering, a bit hands-on, very small company, working in someone's house, basically. Stopped that in around 2008 and spent the next 10 years in sports investment marketing. Sports betting would be the more straightforward way of putting that. And that's really where I got introduced to predictive modeling and predictive analytics, and just understanding how to use math and statistics to figure out what was going to happen next. And had a lot of hands-on coding, hiring lots of really talented data scientists in that space. So just really, really fun time until that party ended right around 2016 or 2017, and just became a difficult market to continue to win. At which time I taught myself SQL. I got a bit more hands-on with R, Python, and some more kind of into the weeds. And I've spent the past 6 years moving from GoGo Air. I was at Bevmo as a pricing manager. I'm on my second role at Intuit now. I entered in the risk analytics team, building models, dashboards, and things of that nature. And I've now transitioned into more of a marketing strategy role, where I'm a senior manager working on growth. So my gig is very much understanding what marketing programs do we need to apply, and understanding where they will give us the best growth and ultimately the best revenue. So lots of strategic questions spanning finance and marketing and data science and analytics, and every day is kind of a fun math problem for me.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan. Wonderful introduction. You can see here the just breadth and depth of experiences we have amongst all our panelists. So, as you know, today's topic is really a cracking the tech interview. But when you really think about it, interviewing is really holistic and it includes so many different elements. So the first question I want to throw out to each of the panelists, and you can each answer and how you see fit, is really more about preparation, right? Because I think preparation is a big part of interviewing. So if you could really just answer the question, how would you recommend preparing for an interview? And Junaid, we'll start with you to take a crack at that question.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, preparation is really the key. Having a solid conversation prepared early ahead is really important. So, perceiving, what type of questions you might expect. One of the things that I've always coached people to prepare is have some stories available. It could be academic projects that you did while you're in school, right? If you have, a few years of experience in industry, certainly talk about the projects you've done. But a lot of times students think that academic projects might not be that worthwhile to discuss, but trust me, those are good conversation starters, right? Talking about a problem that was given to you. How did you understand the problem? How did you scope out the different possible solutions that could exist to it? How did you iterate over that, right? How did you pick a solution that you found was the best? How did you validate that? And then, how did you really find out any performance improvements, enhancements that you could think of? A lot of companies today are developing using agile methodologies. So, you don't have to have every single thing working right away. A lot of our product owner folks here can attest to that. Like, any product is developed over a time frame. You have a minimum viable product, which is the minimum working product, and then you enhance over time. So, how do you apply that into your user stories? Talk about, the challenges you ran into. How did you overcome them? Some of the things you want to focus on is like, how did you learn new things, right? That's the thing that is common across anything in tech, and it's just gonna grow more and more important. How do you learn new skills, right? So talking about an experience wherein you walked in, you didn't have any idea how, say, Python programming worked, but you picked it up, you learned it, and then how did you progress over it? So those are a couple of things that I want to share, and leave it to the other panelists to share their wisdom.
Great, thank you, Junaid. So Jonathan, Nikita, Yessi, anything you want to add to that? I've got an offshoot question of that too, that I think is relevant.
I can jump in. I mean, I think some really good points made about, like, I think storytelling, just understanding the what's the job solving for, right? Like, you want to align your skill set to the skill set of that job. I think a lot of interviews I've seen people kind of struggling is it's good to talk about yourself, but relate all your skills back to the thing you're going to be doing on the job. Like, you're probably a great individual with like really good skills, but like bringing that back home, I think is a really big one. And then another one, I think a little outside the box, maybe shouldn't be outside the box, but is the company's mission statement. As you're asked questions, learning and understanding the company that you're applying to's mission statement, and answering the questions with that in mind. So like for Intuit, part of our mission statement is prosperity, power prosperity around the world. And so it's very much about helping others. And so as you would be interviewing at Intuit, it's important that you have those values of wanting to help others, and that charity and kindness, it comes through, and it's important. It's one of the things we judge on. So other companies may have different mission statements. So it's really important to kind of understand what the target employee looks like at that company. And do you want to be that employee? Like, I think that's another question. I think a lot of people want to work places because I think that they think there's a prestige, but you should pick the place that aligns with your values as well. So I think that mission statement, both for the company standpoint and then from your standpoint, to understand if it's going to be a good fit for you.
Great. That's great advice from both of you. So we're seeing a lot in terms of the preparation side, highlighting experiences and so forth. And then talking a lot about fit, really, is what I heard, Jonathan, which I think is really core. Nikita, I want to have an offshoot of that question, which I think really connects with the work you do. Could you tell us a little bit more about interviewing in terms of how you actually would tailor your responses to stand out in the interview?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I also want to kind of add on what the gentleman we're talking about is that a lot of interviews, especially in the tech space, it's not just one interview. There are a number of interviews you will go through. To be honest, many companies are doing it. Sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 7. And so really understanding kind of intimately what you have done is going to help you when it comes to interviewing. And so specifically on your question on how tailoring those questions, one thing that is major when it comes to interviewing in tech is talking about the impact. So yes, you've done all these great things. Yes, you built this model, but what was the impact to the end user? How did that support how was that impactful to what they were doing? And so one thing I would focus on is definitely finding out what that impact looks like. Utilizing the STAR method, which a lot of companies do reference. If you don't know what the STAR method is, it's essentially talking about the situation, the task, the action, and the results of what you did, which is that impact. And then back to kind of that tailoring is just when you're talking to those individuals, I like to, there's something that I kind of talk to a lot of people when it comes to communication, is finding people's love language or their work love language. And essentially what that is when you are on LinkedIn and you're looking up these different panelists that you will speak to, or those different interviewers, look at their background. If they're data heavy in what they've done, talk about data. If they're very into soft skills, if they're talking about people management and things like that, talk about your soft skills. So really do some research on the back end to really understand who you're interviewing with, and then tailor those based off of what you see they've really focused on in their career, so you can kind of speak the same language. So that's one of like my little tricks.
Great tips, Nikita. So we're seeing a theme here in terms of really doing the research as well at the front end, specifically in terms of who you're going to be talking to as well, which is a lot easier to do now than it used to be. So I think that's really key. Yassi, jumping off what Nikita was talking about, in terms of you're often going to have multiple rounds in terms of interviewing. What are some tips of moving on, getting selected, for example, in the tech round and so forth, and going from there?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the other panelists already kind of touched down on a lot of good points, right? So for me, based on my experience interviewing with many different company and also interview many different candidates myself. So I think there are really boiled down into three things, like to me, and all of this has been touched beautifully by all of the panelists. So I think the first thing is really getting to know, like really the company, right? The company and also the role. What is the role? What is the company, like the missions, like Jonathan said, and understanding completely what is exactly this role, like whether is this the role that you wanted or not, right? Understanding those pieces. And second pieces is, like Nikita said, getting to know the interview structures. Most of the time, you can simply ask the recruiter, what is it going to be? Like in my specific world, in the data scientist role, for example, there's a lot will be, oh, it's going to be behavioral questions, or it's going to be a technical interview, which is sometimes can be, you can ask, is it live coding? Is it business review cases? I have a few experience that I have to do live coding. I have a few experience that you're given a whiteboard and has to explain a lot of different things for hours. So, and also the third thing is really getting to know the interviewer, right? So that is really set up the difference, I feel. Like Tay and Nikita here already touched base as well. You can take a look at them in the LinkedIn and understanding those. So I think by doing all of that, it's kind of show that you are prepared. So when you're prepared, obviously they will, within all the series of the interview, they will see that you pop up from all other candidates, and this will bring you further to the next rounds for sure. So they will see you're prepared, you know the industry, you know what you're talking about, so that will give you a chance, a better chance to be able to be selected to the next round.
Great.
Can I add something quickly on top of that? Yes, he said something and it really spoke to me, and I really want to highlight it because it's for everybody in here. I think it's vastly important. The recruiter wants you to succeed. The recruiter does not want to have to go back and go interview and get more people in. So it's like you can treat that recruiter like a peer, like a partner. Don't be so intimidated by the recruiter, but rather use that person, like Yessi said, ask information. What's the structure? How can I succeed? What is this hiring manager looking for? But yeah, just to really highlight that point, like speak to the recruiter like a peer and ask all those questions, just like Yessi said.
That's great advice, Jonathan. So I think the thing to focus on is remember their title, recruiter. They're recruiting, and I think that's key. So wonderful advice. I want to talk a little bit about interview prep resources. So You know, Junaid, I'm going to throw this question back to you specifically, especially when it comes to technical interviews. What do you recommend in terms of some prep resources, just to really dig in and do a little bit of that preparation work?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, going back to like the basics, right? What is the core requirement of the job? So these requirements would kind of drive your preparation, right? So things like if you are in the software development space, like, going back to the basics in terms of like, how do you solve basic sorting mechanism? What are the different types of bubble sort, linear sort, what have you, right? The other different areas where, you can kind of assess the program's complexity, right? What is a more efficient way of writing a program? So having some of the theoretical basis is definitely a good start. But then again, like writing pseudocode, like trying to do some sample solutions by yourself, like how do you like break down a problem and write a pseudocode for it. I mean, it doesn't have to be working code, but as long as you can write and explain it, that's always a big win. In terms of more like within the space that I'm in, like in the DevOps space, there is a lot of focus on automation. And especially in terms of cloud, when the preparation would entail specific to some clouds, if you are focusing a job within the AWS cloud space, certainly going through like the AWS solution architect associate level certification is a good way to get started. Kind of start knowing the landscape, like what does the cloud entail? What are the different services available there? How do you use them at a very high level? So getting comfortable with like, the cloud landscape is a good start in that space. So those were like the two high level areas that I touch on routinely that I would like to share.
Great. Thank you, Junaid. This is kind of an offshoot question, and I think it's for anyone in the panel. It's coming from the chat, but it's specifically about online coding interviews in terms of preparation. Any thoughts there in terms of preparations? It's a little bit more specific.
I hate them. I don't know that they're a great way to assess. Is kind of my very bold and blunt statement. To Junaid's comment, go back to the basics, I think would be one. There's lots of websites and resources available for that. Whiteboard your code. I think a lot of people execute code in a notebook or in an online environment where they can actually see the result of the code. You're generally not going to get that opportunity. You're going to have to write the code and explain the code without executing it. And so I think it's a very non-standard thing you're probably never going to do in your job. And because of that, I think it's something you should, do on your own. And one way to do that is get a bunch of coding problems and get a whiteboard and answer those coding problems on the whiteboard, being able to kind of explain the steps. And I think that process will really get you more comfortable with the back and forth that's going to happen in that technical assessment.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
I will agree with what Jonathan said. I think from my experience, when it comes to the technical question, I will say out of the 5 technical interview that they have, live coding that you're given a machine, go through that is very rare. Most of the time it's either Excel or you have to go through, you literally have to write your code in Excel, Word documents, or you're given a whiteboard. So I think what they're looking for is not really exactly the logic. It's hard sometimes to get into that, right? But it's not exactly the code, but they want to see the way you're thinking, the way you're understanding the code, the logic that you understand that. So there is, and you can also, again, ask this recruiter, what is this technical interview that is important? Is it going to be SQL? Is it going to be an R? Is it going to be a Python? Is it going to be Java? So then you know exactly what to prepare. And then understand, honestly, Google is my best friend during that time. I will Google what is the standard interview for SQL, for example, or anything that is Python basic, right? And other 2 things that I will say that also helped me is, I don't know if you guys ever heard blind.com. There is secret sources sometimes there that you can utilize that, and also Fishbowl. So that is usually an insider, I will say. Might not be everything there, but an insider, you kind of guess and understand what kind of questions that they might throw out there to kind of help you prepare a little bit more. So
Excellent. Thank you, Yessi. That's wonderful. I know there's a lot of questions in the chat here, but I want to throw out, and we'll come back to those, but I want to throw out a specific question for Nikita. It's related to soft skills, but I'm going to call them, one of our service providers I work with calls them tough skills. So what tough skills do you seek when you're interviewing a student or a graduate for an opportunity? If you could speak to that a little bit, Nikita.
Yeah, I could definitely speak to that. So for me personally, I want to see how you think. And so what's really big, I guess, specifically with Meta and with, I think, a lot of different tech companies is we don't want the same people doing the same things. How are you innovating? How are you looking outside of things? So definitely having those conversations to speak to that interviewer, to have a sense of like, I don't want to say what makes you different because I think everyone's naturally different, but what makes you think about a problem differently? And so really being able to speak to your skills on like how you thought through a difficult situation, how you handled that, what made you think of that process, working with people that are not like you. Diversity of thought is really big, I guess, when it comes for me interviewing, when I've interviewed for roles within my team or interviewed for other roles outside of my team. I really want to see kind of a diversity of thought. So that's one. If you're talking about tough skills or soft skills, I know not everyone is an extrovert and you don't have to be. There's a lot of introverts on my team. There are a lot of people that identify in different ways, have a different way of thinking, as I've said before. So don't be shy about who you are. Just find a way to like express yourself in the best way possible. And it's natural to be nervous. So it's a really hard question because I think it really is just how you connect with that person. But really just focusing on being your true self, your authentic self, whether you're very shy, whether you're very vocal, and being able to connect with that interviewer. Hopefully that answered the question.
I think it did. I think it did. Wonderful. We have so many questions coming in the chat, and our apologies ahead of time. I don't think we're going to get to them all. So the next question is for anyone here, for our distinguished panelists. It's really, I say, more of a behavioral-based question. It's about conflict resolution in this particular case, but I think you could plug in a lot of different examples. So how do you answer a question if you just don't have the experience in terms of what they're asking?
I can quickly jump in. This is a really difficult question. So like whoever asked this, great question. Whenever you're asking a difficult question, you're doing a good job. Conflict resolution. This goes back to the research part of knowing your interviewer, because there's not a right answer for conflict resolution. And so there's a high chance you're going to miss, right? Because some people want you to be bold, solve it, don't ask for help. Others want, hey, go defer to your manager or like whatever your vertical is. And so I think answering that question very much is about understanding the culture of the company. And to Yessi's point again, like go read up on Blind. You want some like very unfiltered views of what a company culture is. I think Blind is a great place to get that. So very difficult to get that right every time. And I think, it's probably true for a lot of questions. Just be true to yourself. Like, how would you actually solve it? And if that's not a fit for the role, then that role is not for you. Like, don't stress so much on getting the role, because you get the role and then you're unhappy because they're solving problems in a way that you're not necessarily comfortable with. So like know the culture, and it gets back to fit, but also just be honest.
If I can add as well, company values are on all of their websites. And 9 times out of 10, they will tell you how they want people to deal with conflict resolution within the company values. So when you are interviewing with a specific company, go to their About Us, like placed on the website. And some companies have 5, some companies have 12, 18. But look at those company values and you can really determine how they deal with conflict resolutions, how they want you to show up with your teammates, how they want you to show up with leadership or how to be a leader. All of that is readily available on their website.
Great. Yessi, Junaid, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, no, I think there was a very good answer, right, from Jonathan and also Nikita. Be true to yourself, even if you don't have any experience on that direct experience yet. Like you have you can kind of think through on the common sense on how your true self is actually going to deal with that. And then going to the Nikita point, it's true. Like I had personal experience in basically interviewing in one of the FANG company, and that's exactly what they're looking for. One of them is very, very focused on the customer. So anything tied in the resolutions, you have to be obsessed with your customers. So probably some people know what it is, but yeah, I mean, those are one of the things that they're exactly looking for and get you far, far further in the interview and even hopefully an offer, right?
Thank you. Thank you. I love this next question for our panelists. If there's one skill you wish you learned in college, what would that be to prepare you for moving into a variety of jobs in life? A little bit philosophical as well, I think. So let's see. Junaid, it's been a little bit since we heard from you. What would you say that one skill is?
I think I mentioned that a little bit earlier in some of the things that are important, which is continuous learning. I think you just have to have that mindset that, you know, you're going to keep learning all your life. I mean, it's a journey. It's not a destination. Like, for example, you set up yourself 5-year goal, like in 5 years, I want to be a senior software developer, for example. You'll be there, and, you know, that's not going to be the end of your journey. You would want to look for the next thing you want to learn within your life. So always be prepared to learn. And always be open to learn. Change can be hard, but, you know, be open to change and, you know, adopt it and use it as an opportunity to grow yourself.
That's good. That's good. Continuous learning. That's definitely makes a lot of sense, especially in today's world. Yassi, Jonathan, Nikita, anything you'd like to add to that in terms of the skill that you wished you had learned?
Sure. Yeah, for me, it's I think storytelling. So about my journey, about my skill, and kind of how I sell myself. So that was actually big things that I learned throughout many different interview that kind of finally get comfortable to that. So I come from the applied mathematics major, where a lot of it's like nerds. We don't really express ourselves, understanding a lot of that. And my master is also in the analytics. So a lot of that, we really have to kind of open up our shell to be able to do that. And the key is to practice a lot of this. Like I will say that practicing has been really helpful to how do you want to communicate. I even start by actually writing a narrative, what I want to say at the beginning of it, read it out loud to myself until I completely understand and it makes sense in my head. That was the first thing that I will do. And that is really kind of like what I wish that in some of this STEM program that in the college that they kind of teach you, right? That's okay. That this is a practice that you have to go through every time. That is you're not going to be out there and then kind of explaining a lot of textbooks that you learn from textbooks. Basically, you want to be able to kind of connect and sell yourself a little bit more. So I think that was that happened to me. At least what I learned was through a lot of practice, going through a lot of interview.
Thank you.
To add on to what Junaid said about like continuous learning and kind of getting back to the original question, I think for me, I wish I spent more time in finance and econometrics. And I find myself kind of in marketing now consistently not understanding how the bigger economic picture is going to affect a lot of the data problems and models and things that I'm building. And I think these worlds can be very separated. But then you do have econometricians that are very kind of analytics, data science based. And so I'd really suggest finding groups. It doesn't have to be the group I'm about to suggest, but like whatever that area is of continuous learning, find a group of people that is also interested in it, because it's going to motivate you to continue talking about it. So I owe a lot of my success to the Chicago R users group who throws like bi-monthly events. It's chock full of finance people and econometricians and programmers and data scientists. And if not for that group, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you all right now. And so I think that, you know, this idea of like, find the thing maybe you didn't finish up, but that is important to you, and then find a group to work with it on it, you know, and to learn from each other. Because I think that's just been a huge help for me personally anyway.
And I'll just jump in really quickly. How to give and how to receive hard feedback or tough feedback. That's very big when it comes to the space. I know we've learned how to receive feedback when we're in school, but sometimes we don't know how to give tough feedback. And a lot of these spaces really get their best learnings from sharing tough feedback and knowing how to do it in a politically right way. So I have seen in my career some people that have given feedback very terribly, and that has affected them in their journey through their tech journey. And I've also worked with people that know how to be strategic and be very specific on giving you feedback that's going to be helpful and help you grow. And if you can master that skill, that will actually get you in more rooms than not. So definitely mastering the skill of giving and receiving tough feedback.
That's a wonderful, wonderful advice, Nikita. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. We want to get a little bit nuts and bolts here. And I want to, there's a question that's really related to technical interviewing, but I want to put a spin on it in terms of some of the questions that came before. So the question is, if you don't know how to answer a technical question, can you Google the concept that you're unfamiliar with during the interview? So does anyone want to tackle that? And then I want to add on to that in terms of preparation.
I think during the interview, it's a big no-no. Like, I mean, trying to look up information on the side, especially in the virtual world, it's just gonna, you know, destroy your credibility with the interviewer. So highly unrecommend it.
Okay, very direct, Janae. Love it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it again, you know, what are the company's values? Like, what's the role? How much of a stretch is that question? I regularly ask impossible to answer questions. And the only reason I ask them is I want to see how you think. I may not have the answer. So I don't know, like maybe it's okay, depending on the situation. So, you know, you have to use that. Another kind of cheat hack kind of thing. They can see what's on your screen. They can see what's behind you. They can't see what's behind your screen. So, you know, if you want to put some notes up there, I may or may have done that for the role I'm currently in. So like, you know, when you're working, you will be allowed to Google things. You will have notebooks. You will have GitHub of other people's code. So understand that these tech assessments, I mentioned I'm not a huge fan of, are not always the best judge of how good you are in the role. So put yourself in a position to succeed would be my advice.
Okay, great. It's good advice. Put yourself in a position to succeed. All right, I wanna. Jonathan, you mentioned video interviews to a certain extent. So Yassi, I want to start with you with this question. Is a lot of, you know, first round interviews are happening over Zoom or some similar platform these days. Tips on being successful in a Zoom interview?
Prepare your appearance. I think that's the first thing for the Zoom interview, right? Besides all of the things that we have talked about, getting into preparing for the interview, getting to know the company, the role itself, going back into the very first, I think, questions that we answered. I think in the Zoom, it's very important to at least you prepare for the job. I don't expect usually see people or in the full suit or anything, I think, in this today's world, but at least you make sure your appearance is presentable enough to that. I mean, I have a few candidates just show up with very, very messy hair, look like they just get up. And that's okay, but at least maybe shape up a little bit on that thesis. So I will say, just prepare on that and make sure you have a space that you can talk freely. If you are at home, I mean, great, getting into some of the away from a distraction a little bit, be prepared on that. I think to kind of show up on the video interview, just then make that impressions, the first impressions, I think to be good at least.
Great tips. So we heard preparation and the importance of that first impression. It matters, even over Zoom. Anyone else like to add to that?
I can add to it. So as Jonathan has shared, I have prepared as well. As I have a window in front of me. I've taped what subjects I wanted to touch on, what experiences I wanted to have. The benefit of being in Zoom is, yes, you can have your notes behind the screen. Not so much, I haven't done a technical interview, so I don't know what that looks like, but definitely for the behavioral interview, making sure that you have the story that you're saying. And as I've shared before, really outlining, like, I'm going to start off with the situation. What was the situation? What task did I do? What was the action I did? So like really putting that down in a place where it's within eye view or within your eyesight view. And then also having really great questions. I've actually gone from, I don't know if this is the right person to, wait, that was a brilliant question, to really, really thinking about how that person speaks. So prepare some great questions, especially how that interviewer is speaking. And then the last thing, this is not so much with Zoom, but with any type of interview, that thank you note can change a no to a not right now to a better position. There are many people that I know that have gotten a no from a tech interview, and they kept that relationship with the recruiter, or sent a thank you note saying like, hey, I had a great chat with you. Here are my skill sets. Here are things that I really think would benefit your company. Actually, I might have a role that you guys don't offer right now, and have gotten callbacks months later, a year later, saying, you remember you told us about that role that you thought we should have? Yeah, we want to hire you for that specific role. This has happened to many people that I know. So definitely that follow up, that closing that loop is very important.
I
Great
want to
tip.
add on. I want to add on to that questions piece. Like, prepare your questions. Spend time before your interview knowing what you want to ask about the business, about where the team is going. Like, that should be a huge research point. It's one of the few opportunities that you're going to have to show how you think outside the box, how you can impact the team. Like, spend as much time on those questions as you are on like the tech stuff. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, there's so many people that are like very similar. And this last point in the interview where I go, so any questions for me? Like, that can make or break like an interview. It's hugely important.
Great tip in terms of that. So I love what I'm hearing here, and I think everyone's really benefiting from this. So we want to also, kind of go back and forth here in terms of questions that really will, I think, benefit the majority of folks on the call. There was a good question about handling salary type questions that can come from a recruiter, or in some cases, maybe in the interview itself. How do you address those when the questions of salary come up? And this is a question for anyone on the panel.
Nikita's really good at this question. I always send people to Nikita to answer this question.
All right, Nikita, I think you're up first.
That's very funny. So there is a law, and I don't want to, I'm not a lawyer, but I read this in blind. There is a law in California that does require recruiters to give you the band. So you can ask them, what is the band of the salary before you give your salary option? That has saved me a lot of money by asking them what the band is. So don't be afraid. More and more states are actually offering that salary option. Colorado is one of the biggest ones. So if you actually look on the like LinkedIn, if they offer the role in Colorado, or if it's remote, it will say Colorado residents. It will say the amount, and depending on where you are, you can do a conversion of like 10% to like 15% differences to determine what what that band would be. So when a recruiter does ask you, it is okay to say, well, can you provide, Jonathan, I think just dropped the link in there. Can you provide the band so I can have a better understanding? And then they might say, well, it really depends on what you want. It's for me to make a really great decision depending on what the role is, what are the expectations within my role, and what you're looking for. It would give me a better sense to understand what your salary range would be. And just kind of circling it back to that recruiter, most of the time they will tell you in the moment that they're like, well, just let us know, we'll try to get close. Try to find it through blind, through levels is another one that gives you a lot of that information. I have found that Indeed does not give the right salary bands. They are much lower in the tech industry, I have found. So definitely utilizing that. And then I always say pad about 10%. So what you saw in level, say, you know, I'm looking between this amount to this amount, give them a band so then they can tell you if they could work with it. So bands are the big thing.
Great. That's really, really, really great salient advice. Bands or ranges, right? I think is something to really focus upon. Junaid, Yassi, anything you'd like to add to that?
I think
Yeah,
in
no,
terms of like, go ahead,
oh,
Yossi.
go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say, I think Nikita really hit on the spot there, right? So do your research about what did it ask again about the salary range, and in advance, it will save you a lot of time. Basically, if it's not what you're looking for, then you said, I'm sorry, or maybe ask, can you do XYZ? Give it a range, always a range. I think that's the best. And I completely agree that blind and also level.fyi is, I think, the best resources that you can actually find there. And always do your research, right? And every time that you want to do that, you don't want to be I will say getting ding on the offers. Make sure that you actually get the best offer that you can get there, and also always try to negotiate. I mean, at the end of it, so never accept, I think, the first offer. Just like, yes, I know you're excited. Usually, getting that first job, you just want to jump into yes, but always say, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Give me one night to sleep on it and negotiate. I will say, because it will make a lot of difference throughout your career in that and also in that company. So
You also don't lose a job for negotiating. I think this might be a misnomer. I think a lot of people are scared to negotiate because they think a company is going to pull the offer. They've expressed that they want you. They've spent a lot of money, time, and effort to get you to the point where they're ready to give you an offer. Do not be scared to like go 10, 20, 30, 40% above what their initial is, what you've read online. And you can share that with them. Hey, I'm on levels. I'm seeing in this location that, you know, this person is getting this much equity and this much bonus. You only offered this. Like, what's the difference between me? And they can explain, well, we leveled you at a 4. And in order for that, it's a level at a 6. But you can get into those very specific discussions. And now when you're on the job, oh, I want to get to a 6 because I know what the salary, and so not only are you solving for the job that you're trying to get then, but the next progression, the next progression, and the next progression.
Excellent. Junaid, anything you'd like to add to that?
I just wish I had this advice when I took my first job.
Okay.
Great advice.
All right. And I want to add something to that. I'm not a lawyer, but I believe in the state of Illinois, it's illegal to ask the question what you made in a prior role or your current position. So kind of keep that in mind as well. All right. We have so many more questions, and I know we've got about 5-6 minutes left here. So I want to jump to, let's see if there's any other questions here that I think are salient. There's so much here. And again, I want to focus a little bit more on interviewing. But this question, I think, just makes sense from a hiring standpoint. So I'm just going to throw it out there. So it's a question that I've even struggled with. It's about cover letters. So we're going a little off topic here, but I think the question is, do they matter? Really, I'll just get straight to the point. What's your thoughts on cover letters?
I will jump in. I absolutely dislike cover letters.
Okay.
I as a writer and someone that has written, I have gotten a lot of tech interviews and I had never written a cover letter. I think Jonathan actually put this in. If you can get a referral will be a lot better than that cover letter. And most tech companies and most tech spaces, they're going to have a referral a program where the employee can get money for referring someone and getting the job. So definitely, like, going on LinkedIn, I know someone just asked any tips on getting internal referrals. Going on LinkedIn, finding someone that's in that role in your network, reaching out to them, telling them that you're interested in that role. And 9 times out of 10, they will give you a referral, because a lot of times you can make money if the person gets the job. So it's a win-win situation. But cover letters, it really depends. If it's an old line company, sometimes they will be really specific on, tell us about yourself, you can write it. But as we're moving a little more on like people looking at recruiters looking at your LinkedIn and looking at referrals, they're not as serious. But what I suggest is have a standard referral that you can, this is gonna be so bad. Hopefully there's no recruiters here. You can remove this company, this person, have a standard referral, add and change it just in case you need it. But a lot of times I've gotten a lot of interviews without without cover letters rather.
Yeah, I want to jump into that internal referral thing. This is like, again, another little hack secret sauce in tech. Internal referral is much better than starting with the recruiter. So most processes, you're going to apply and wait for the recruiter to talk to you, right? I think Nikita suggests to folks, I definitely suggest to folks, like, if you know someone at the company, get the referral, because, so for example, like there's a question, any tips on getting an internal referral? Do you see a job that you like at Intuit? Yes. Reach out to Jonathan on LinkedIn. Say, hey, Jonathan, I'm interested in this job at Intuit. Can you give me an internal referral? It's really that simple. And I think you'll find that you can meet people on LinkedIn. You can meet people in your normal network that work at these companies that are going to be willing to give you a referral. And I can't speak for other companies, but where I've worked, I can go walk up to the hiring manager. I can go walk up to the recruiter and go, hey, this person's great. If I'm not mistaken, yes, he used to work with Nika. Nika was at Baxter before. I forget the company before. In any event, Nika works at Intuit now via internal referral, right? So I highly, highly, highly suggest networking and meeting people and going the internal referral route before you're just like cold applying.
Great tip. The networking referral route, I definitely would second that. All right, we are running out of time, but I've got one last question, and then I'll turn over to Erica to wrap up here. So I'm gonna start with you, Yessi. And this question is for each of you, and please keep it to less than 1 minute if you can. What is the one thing you hope our 100+ participants attending this discussion will walk away with?
Yeah, that's a really good thing. So I will say, keep moving forward. Like, I know as I was a student before, looking for that first job to just get the open door, I think that was maybe challenging and can be challenging, but don't lose your courage and always prepare, I think, for the interview, right? Don't wing it. I think especially if this is your first interview, you think you can do it, I will say better have more preparations than just wing it, because we can tell if you just wing it, right? As a lot of the interviewer coming in here. So I think you have a lot of great tips right now. Those preparations, it will give you a long way. And then if you get rejected in the first time, do not give up. I get hundreds of rejection letters. And sometimes I look back and I said, well, I think I'm glad that it got rejected, or else I actually glad that I actually declined that offer. This offer, it's actually worked out for the best. So I will say, keep going and continue to be prepared for your interview.
Love it. Thank you, Yessi. Remember, don't wing it. All right. Junaid.
No, definitely great points covered by Yassi. Just to add, like, keep up with the preparation and, keep moving strong. Reach out. I mean, we talked a lot about networking, the importance of that. Reach out for your internal network. IIT is a great space, and all the other institutions that have joined, I'm sure they have great internal networks, internal alums that have moved on to these companies. So reach out to us, for example, for myself, if you're interested in Slalom, make use of these social networks that you're part of.
Great advice. You've got some social networks built in just from today. Jonathan?
I hope people walk away with a bit more confidence and feel like things are not as murky. I talk about this process as being like translation. So like, just because you're not in tech doesn't mean like you shouldn't be in tech or there's not a role for you there. So I really hope that like this kind of unmasks like what it takes to kind of like break through. And if you have follow-up questions, like a couple of the panelists has mentioned, reach out to me, like ask questions. And I think just being urgent in how you attack these things and address these things as you're curious about them and continue to move forward is really important. So confidence and urgency is what I hope folks take away.
Great. Confidence and urgency. That's wonderful. Nikita, you have the last word. What should someone walk away from today?
A lot of pressure. I would focus really on what Jesse has said as well. Just because you get a no doesn't mean no. It just means not yet.
This is really
There's
helpful.
been a lot of
This interview. No, the interview.
Do you like
thing.
this?
hey,
Oh,
thanks
if
for
you can mute
starting.
yourselves, please. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I would just say it's just because you get a no doesn't mean no. It just means not yet. I've got 100+ rejection letters. I've got 100+, like they're there, and I needed one approval, and I got a great job at Meta. And ever since I got that one level of approval from any company that you can have, that can open even more doors. So don't feel any type of way once you get a no. Just keep going, keep applying as you can.
Wonderful persistence. That's good. Well, thank you. We didn't get to all the questions. We realize that in the length of time, but thank you for your participation. It was wonderful. I'm going to turn over to Erica to wrap up. But just on behalf of Illinois Tech, I just want to thank everyone for participating. And Erica, thank you for having me moderate the panel. It was definitely a pleasure, and I was honored to do so. Oh, Erica, I don't think we can hear you, right? One moment. No? Okay.
She is not muted.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up for Erica. And there is a survey that is going to be going out. So please fill out the survey as well. Erica, if you could add that to the chat, is that going to be emailed? Thumbs up? Yes?
It's in the chat.
It's in the chat as well. Okay.
She put it in the chat, and I'll send a follow-up email.
Okay. Okay. So please fill out the survey. Your opinions are very important to us as well. And again, thank you everyone for really joining in today. Scott, thank you for helping manage everything. Erica, again, thank you for inviting me. Junaid, Yessi, Jonathan, Nikita, probably one of the best panels that I've been a part of. So let's give everyone a round of applause virtually. Thank you again for participating. And that concludes today's program.